I figured it'd probably take a minute or something.
Yeah, we'll wait till 7 o'clock before I do my intro.
All right, well, it's a little late for that. We're live, homie.
Yeah, but there's nobody on. It's just me and you. So
yeah, that's fair. For now.
Yeah, I want to make sure that on Facebook we're live. Oh, we are live. There we are.
I told you we were going live.
I like it. I just want to make sure it was working. It is working. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, me too. I'm watching us on Facebook Live.
It's a little late, but it's still fine. So if anybody is with us right now, we're BSing Sports. I'm Bill. That's Ryan. It's good to see you guys. If you're seeing us, we are live for the first time. It's our first live show. We're really excited about it. Hopefully, if you guys can get on the StreamYard link, you can give us some comments. You don't have to do anything special. Ryan's going to be able to let people on as he pleases, but comments should be able to come through the way the websites are linked. So, again, we're happy to have everybody here. Thank you so much for being with us. And today we're going to be talking primarily fantasy football, but we'll talk about some other topics. Live shows. They can go anywhere we want them to go. So, again, live. Ryan.
We'll probably just be live until they kick us off. I have no sort of time frame for this kind of stuff.
I do.
Yeah, I mean, we got to get started on some other things, but yeah. So if you guys are here, leave a comment. Let us know you're here. We'll be able to see it right on Facebook, and we'll give you guys a shout out. Thanks for all the support again. We really appreciate it. We've been doing this for 15 weeks, dude. We almost got through a full NFL season of shows so far.
Yeah, it's impressive. I'm happy that we're doing it. Like I said, it's fun for me, and it's a great time. Old man,
what we should do is we should divide them up into seasons, dude. So once we hit week 18, we'll go. Week 19 will be season 2.
All right. You send us a private chat. Try and use the actual comments.
Yeah. I see a private chat here. What up, boys? What up, old man? Glad to see you could check in. So anyway, primarily fantasy football. We're going to cover just an array of topics, I guess. And the first topic that we have to cover is coming out of Jacksonville. And I think that this is probably the biggest news in football. And we'll get into, our opinions about it a little bit later. But the big news is that passing game coordinator Brian Schottenheimer and head coach Urban Meyer refuse to name Trevor Lawrence the starter, despite him being the number 1 overall pick and probably the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck, depending on how you look at it. As far as fantasy football goes, Bill, what should you be concerned about and what should you not worry about with those comments?
So with the Trevor Lawrence situation in dynasty leagues, those of you who are unfamiliar with dynasty leagues, it's essentially just like the NFL. You draft a team in year 1. You keep that team except for players that you decide to let go or trade away. So in a dynasty league, I wouldn't be very concerned about it. Wherever you take Trevor Lawrence is wherever you take Trevor Lawrence. He will be the starter of that team, and he'll probably be there for a long time. As for regular fantasy football leagues, if you're thinking about taking Trevor Lawrence, you really need to watch that situation closely before your draft. I don't think it's long before he starts, but like you said, Urban Meyer came out and said that he didn't look like he was ready. So, I mean, that's kind of concerning for a number 1 overall draft pick. It's not often that you get one and he's sitting on the bench the first season. Yeah, and this could be a huge pump fake just to, drive competition. I understand, young kid and as talented as he is and, as polished as he may be, you don't want to come in here and be like, all right, dude, the reins are yours. Have fun. You want to motivate him and keep him going and force him to do his due diligence and work. So this could all be a huge pump fake. And I wholeheartedly believe it is. I can't imagine that they would draft, a potential like Trevor Lawrence just to have him sit on the bench for a year. It's not like he's sitting behind Tom Brady. It's not like they did that. He's sitting behind Gardner Minshew if he sits. So this is a little that I can't imagine that he's going to sit. And there's no way. What do you think, Bill? I think it's a smokescreen. Like you said, I can't imagine he's sitting on any capacity. Again, number 1 overall. It was never a doubt that he was the number 1 overall. Kid lit it up in college. So if Urban Meyer's coming out right now and saying he doesn't look ready, I think that's only a concern about the playbook, not of what Trevor Lawrence's abilities are or not. Yeah, so I agree with that. However, and speaking of quarterbacks not starting, so there were 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round so far, and only one of them right now is the starter on his team.
We talked about Trevor Lawrence. Zach Wilson is the one that's starting for the Jets, mostly because I can't name another quarterback on the roster. That's how thin it is. Then, number 3 overall pick, Trey Lance is sitting behind Jimmy Garoppolo for right now. That situation will develop, as San Fran gave up a lot of draft capital. We'll hit on that later. Mac Jones right now is sitting behind Cam Newton. I can't imagine that lasts very long. And the other one, Justin Fields. Yeah, Justin Fields is sitting behind Andy Dalton as of right now. So which one of those other ones, the other 3 that we haven't talked about, has the most likely chance of starting week 1?
I think probably Mac Jones of the group. I mean, there's an argument to be made about Justin Fields in Chicago sitting behind Andy Dalton. But Trey Lance, there wasn't a doubt when they took Trey Lance at 3 that Garoppolo wasn't starting the season unless he got injured. It's up to Trey Lance to dethrone him as the starting quarterback. And look, we've talked about it before. Jimmy Garoppolo is 27-5 in his starts. He just can't get out of September. So, I mean, looking at that amount of – sorry, I'm like looking at the stuff that you're doing that is and isn't working. We're working on it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So looking at all that stuff, I think Mac Jones taking over for Cam Newton in New England is probably the most likely scenario. Now, I don't think it'll be by week 1, but Cam Newton's probably going to come out and do what he did last year, be extremely ineffective throwing the football and show that his legs are old and he can't really run anymore either. And Mac Jones is going to get his opportunity. Bill Belichick is not there to waste another season. He wants to prove that Tom Brady was not the winner there, that it was him. So he's going to go to the next thing that he thinks may get it done. If Cam Newton's not doing it by week 3, it's going to be Mac Jones.
Yeah, so obviously Bill Belichick had a lot of success with Tom Brady. Those 3, and Josh McDaniels included, obviously generated a lot of success. They only won like 6 Super Bowls or something like that. But yeah, I agree. I actually wouldn't be shocked if Mac Jones was the starter going into week 1. From the sounds of it, he's doing very well in camp. However, he was dealing with a bit of a hamstring issue, so that's something to monitor, I guess. But it sounds like he's going to recover from that just fine. He's not going to miss any time. The biggest concern I have with Mac Jones. We got a comment from Patriots fan John Ferris, actually says Cam out week 1. So, yeah, no, I agree. I don't know whether he has some injury insight or not, but I wholeheartedly agree that Mac Jones is the starter for that team. If you were to compare the 2, who's closer to Tom Brady, Mac Jones or Cam Newton? Who's the better quarterback on the roster right now, Mac Jones or Cam Newton? I think the answer to both those questions, one of them is obviously Mac Jones, and who's better, I think, is Mac Jones. And they didn't just sign all those free agents for nothing. They signed Jonnu Smith. They signed Hunter Henry. They rebeefed the defense. They went and got Matthew Judon, the linebacker from Baltimore. So they beefed up that squad for sure. And I don't think they did that to have a mediocre quarterback performance. Again, they're here to compete for the division and most certainly the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good take on it. And like you said, we don't know if John's following the Patriots more closely than we are. I mean, he probably is. He's a Patriots fan.
Yeah.
So maybe he has some inside information on Cam Newton. So we may very well get the Mac Jones show right there from the get-go. And listen, if Mac Jones comes out and he performs, Cam Newton's never getting on the field again. Not in New England anyway. Yeah,
it just sucks that I don't know if they weren't anticipating on there being a quarterback available at 15, but they did sign Cam Newton at 1 year, $14 million deal. And granted, in today's market, that's not a lot of money for quarterbacks, but still to do something like that and then draft a guy and pay a dude $14 million to sit on the bench is a little, head scratching. But again, like I said, maybe that was their contingency plan because maybe they thought Mac Jones wasn't going to be there at 15.
Yeah, I mean, probably.
How long do you think Dalton lasts in front of Fields?
I was actually going there next. So Andy Dalton is such an interesting story, right? So his entire career, he plays pretty well throughout his entire career in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. The last few years, he got a bad rap. The team was just horrible around him. Joe Burrow this season proved the exact same thing, that maybe it wasn't all Andy Dalton. And then you get him in Dalton in the Cowboys organization, and after he finally built some camaraderie with his team there, I realized they still didn't win the division, but he played much better down the stretch.
Also was hurt too. He missed some games. Ben DiNucci, right. Whoever that other guy was that played, he just had no consistency in actually playing.
Yeah. So it would be interesting for me to see Andy Dalton play quarterback for a team that's actually got some help around him.
Yeah, true number one wide receiver. I mean, granted, the Cowboys had it too, but I think that whole team was checked out. Their demeanor just showed they were all checked out.
Yeah, I agree. I think Justin Fields probably doesn't see the field until at least week 8, halfway through the season. If the Bears are competing and Dalton is playing well, Dalton stays. If the Bears are competing and Dalton is not playing well, Fields comes in. And if the Bears are not competing at all, Fields comes in.
Yeah, there's only one scenario where Dalton holds that job. I, however, do think they'll kind of do something like what Miami did last year and wait till the bye week, which is week 10 for the Bears. I could see them making the change then. It sounds like from all the reports that I'm reading and all the news coming out of Chicago up there that the team belongs to Fields whenever he gets the playbook down and whenever like they are confident he can take the reins. And so it's a job that he does have to earn, but I think once they've established he earns it, he's going to take it. I don't even necessarily think it depends on how Dalton plays.
Okay. Garoppolo and Lance out there in San Francisco. How long do you think before Garoppolo is not a Niner anymore?
It depends on when they can find a suitor for him. It's tough right now. It doesn't sound like any teams are in dire need of a quarterback. There were, 5 taken in the first round this year, and it filled a lot of vacancies. So it depends. If they can deal Garoppolo tomorrow, obviously Lance is the starter. If they can't deal Garoppolo until next offseason, then Lance is going to sit all year. So that really all depends because Garoppolo is a proven winner when he plays. He is like 21-6 as a starter, which, you think about it and you're like, man, Garoppolo's been a starter for some time. Why is he outplayed so many games? And like you alluded to earlier, he barely gets out of September, doesn't ever get out of October. So maybe Lance could take over for injury. It's hard to predict injuries, but I say as soon as Garoppolo is gone, Lance is the starter, and I don't think that's until next year.
Okay. I mean, all right. So we've touched on the 4 quarterbacks.
Well, what about you? When's Lance going to take over?
I almost have the exact same answer as you. It depends on whether or not there's a team that gets desperate enough to take Garoppolo off the Niners' hands or not.
Let me ask you this: Tua is struggling in Miami. But the team's competing. They're competing for a wild card. I can't see them competing with the Bills for the division, even if Tua plays well. But they're competing for a wild card. Tua's struggling. Jimmy G go to Miami?
I think it's a possibility, but they've proven that they would rather go with I know Garoppolo's not super old, but they've proven, especially last year when they were winning games with Ryan Fitzpatrick and going to Tua because they believed he was the future. They've proven that they would rather go with young guys.
Did they? Because they benched Tua like 2 or 3 times at halftime last year. That doesn't sound like they're willing to ride or die with Tua.
The next game, they started him again. So, and look, based on that conversation alone, the fact that they benched him 3 times and Fitzpatrick came in and won 2 of those 3 games makes me wonder why they let Fitzpatrick go in the offseason to begin with. 1.
Well, 2, Fitzpatrick wasn't coming back. I don't think he was going to play that push and pull game with them.
Fitzpatrick wanted to play, and he's not going to play there.
Did you see his reaction at the press conference when one of the reporters asked him if he was going to go back to Miami? Like rolled his eyes and scoffed. He didn't even answer the question.
It wasn't worth an answer.
No way.
But to answer the question, do I think that Miami goes and gets Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, anything is possible in the NFL. Anything is possible. So, yeah, sure. Miami could go get him. I just think it's really doubtful. Yeah, so actually we have a question. Is Jimmy G only a Bill Belichick guy? That's a no for me. I'm going to disagree. That's a hard sell for me. Yeah, it's a hard sell for me. He does perform pretty well when he plays under a Kyle Shanahan offense. I think in an elite offensive scheme, he does fine. He just can't stay on the field. That's his only issue, and which is weird because they have a pretty good offensive line up there in San Francisco. So that the dude's made of glass. Yeah, I mean, listen, he took the Niners to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. That can't be forgotten. The guy can play football. He can play quarterback. His issue is that he's made of glass, and now his issue is. The Chiefs beat the Niners 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah,
like I said on last week's show, I have no concept of time. So,
but yeah. So I mean, here's an even better question for you. Miami's winning, and the Niners are winning. I'm sorry. No. So Miami's winning. Let's say hypothetically, they're for some reason better than the Bills in that division. Not going to happen. Let's say hypothetically, they're better than the Bills in that division. And the Niners are third in their division at the trade deadline. But they're only 2 games back. You think the Niners gamble and run with Lance or stay steady with Jimmy G?
Oh, no, they'll run with Lance for sure, no doubt. If there's any sign of struggle from Jimmy G, I think they go to Lance in a heartbeat. Number one, Lance is much more of a dynamic threat. He's a run and gun kind of guy. He gets out of the pocket. He can push the ball downfield, which is exactly what they want to do. Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel running down the field. George Kittle with, when he's playing his 8 games a year running down the field. Speaking of guys who are broken on the 49ers, they'll absolutely go to Lance if they're 2 games out, if they're in 3rd place in the division, because quite frankly, what do you have to lose? Everybody's looking at the Rams like they're going to win that division because of the addition of Matthew Stafford, and I agree. I think they will. But if they're in that kind of position, what do you really have to lose? What are you going to do, fall farther in the division? But if the Rams start to, or if, they're really competing, they're all tied, it's like week 11, week 12, they might run Garoppolo the whole season. We'll see. The veteran experience would help out down the stretch. But if they're 2 games out, I see them going to Lance. He'll fit that Kyle Shanahan offense so well.
All right. I like that take on it as well. The old man sent us another question.
Hold on real quick. So with these rookies, we 16 minutes ago, we established that we were going to talk fantasy football. We haven't mentioned a lick of it yet. We just talked about real football. What are the fantasy impacts of things like this? Like, say I'm in a redraft, which is standard, fantasy football. Where are you taking any of these quarterbacks, rookies or the veterans that are supposedly in front of them?
Minshew is not on my list to draft at all. So let's get Jacksonville out of the way right away. Minshew's not on my list to draft. I don't care if you start in week 1 or not.
Certainly not dynasty, and redraft is a no for me too.
Yeah. But again, as I mentioned 16 minutes ago, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the starting quarterback for a long time in Jacksonville. He may not be ready this second, but he'll probably be ready in a few weeks.
How do you think that impacts those receivers down there? The Minshew to Lawrence, who do you think benefits from that the most? Chark, Laviska Shenault, or the running backs, Etienne and Robinson?
So I think with Minshew, the running backs benefit more. They're going to run the ball more under Gardner Minshew. It's not that Trevor Lawrence isn't mobile, because he is mobile, but because Minshew doesn't have as strong of an arm, they're going to run the ball more. They're going to try and pound it and then do like the quick West Coast offense, 3rd down, throw the ball on a slant route, hope you can get lucky. That's with Minshew. Now, Trevor Lawrence, he's got a quick release. He's got a strong arm. He can get the ball down the field. I think the wide receiver that will benefit the most from it is probably Rene Shenault. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Laviska Shenault?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Laviska Shenault. Because he's the guy, and it's not on every time because Chark does it too. They just run these post routes, but Lawrence can hit them on the post routes. You're talking contested, but over the shoulder post routes rather than contested jumping and getting hit post routes. So I think immensely if you go to Lawrence, the receivers benefit immensely. Whereas if you're sticking with Gardner Minshew, you kind of have to adapt the offense towards his inadequacies.
Yeah, so I think the biggest benefactor from Lawrence eventually taking over, whenever that may be, week 1, week 6, week 10, next year, whatever, is DJ Chark. I know they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, so they are concerned about the production. He did have a very good beginning of 2019 fantasy and real football-wise, and he's fallen off since then. However, he's had some shoddy quarterback play, so I think more consistent quarterback play will help him for sure. Lawrence will be able to get him the balls, the hard-to-catch balls. And the biggest, negative from this is for James Robinson, and not just because Travis Etienne is also there, but they are going to throw the ball more, and Travis Etienne is the established pass-catching back. So with Travis Etienne on the field more, less of James Robinson. So when drafting this year, I'd probably go I'd mark Robinson as a low-end RB2. He'll probably finish in the high 20s, somewhere like the 21 to 23 range. But going forward in Dynasty, I could see that falling a little bit.
Yeah, in that aspect. I mean, we discussed this right before we jumped on that most leagues are PPR leagues. It's funny that a lot of websites don't describe that as the standard fantasy football league anymore, which is weird. From a dynasty standpoint, it's not that I would stay away from James Robinson. I'd probably take him in one of the middle to late rounds, 6, 7, 8 in that area. But for Travis Etienne, I I mispronounce his last name every single time I say it.
Just
Travis
Etienne.
Etienne.
It's like
right?
BTN, but with an E.
Etienne. Okay. He's higher for me specifically because of what you just discussed. Because he's a pass catcher and in a PPR league, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to your text that you just sent me. It's beneficial to draft Etienne in probably like the third or fourth round in some 12-player dynasty leagues or even regular leagues.
Yeah, I don't know about redraft because I don't know what kind of impact the rookie running backs can have, especially the year that James Robinson just had. That's hard to disregard. However, for dynasty, I would agree he's a third, late third, early fourth round pick. And there's rapport there with him and Trevor Lawrence. And usually in just fantasy football in general, if you have the quarterback running back combo for an offense that you project to be elite, like in a couple of years, we project Trevor Lawrence to lead the Jags offense to be elite, especially with Laviska Shenault there. And, hopefully DJ Chark for me anyway. I drafted him in Dynasty. But that's going to be a deadly combo because they're either going to run the ball with Etienne or throw the ball with Lawrence. So if you can snag some kind of combo like that, that's more the merrier for you guys. But yeah, I would say Etienne is definitely higher up on my board in Dynasty. However, he is not higher up on my board in redraft. And if you still manage to play non-PPR, which like I said before the show, I don't know anybody that does. I don't even know that I would draft Etienne, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not a PPR league, I don't know if I'd go for him either. It's funny because I'm looking at Fantasy Football Calculator, the website right now, at the top 100 fantasy football players of this year. They've got Travis Etienne ranked at 22 and James Robinson at 30 for running backs overall, not of everybody overall, of running backs. So it's pretty good. I mean, that's a good problem to have in Jacksonville. Two running backs that can be like a two-headed monster down there, especially when you're trying to help. I mean, I know that one of your running backs is a rookie, but you're trying to help out the new rookie quarterback. That's a good thing to have, good problem to have.
Yeah, no, this year he might be a bit of a flyer because you think if Trevor Lawrence takes over from week one, you tend to simplify the offense for the rookie quarterbacks a little bit, no matter how good you think they're going to be. So a lot of swing passes, a lot of short routes. Are you laughing at the Phillies game?
Yes.
Yeah, that I'm so glad this isn't a baseball podcast. I'd give Ricky Batalico a run for his money right now. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, so the pass-catching running back thing is definitely very beneficial. I'm reading John's question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, did you guys consider him going mid-second round of our league? I'm assuming he's talking about Etienne?
Yeah, I think he's still talking about Etienne, and I think that's definitely
that's definitely a stretch for me, and that's way above ADP. And I try not to put too much stock in the average draft position and I'll give you an example. So I think in 12-man leagues, Snake startup, Trevor Lawrence's average draft position was like the 14th or 15th pick. So second round, number 3. However, he did go round 1, 6 overall. Jason got him, and I don't hate that pick because if Trevor Lawrence is somebody that you really want and you recognize that he is probably going to be off the board before your second round pick, drafting him at number 6 overall isn't a problem with me. You're still going to, get your good running backs in the second round, and you're getting a guy who you have circled on your draft board, a guy that you really wanted, but Travis Etienne in the middle of the second round to me is a stretch because no matter where you're drafting in the third round, he should have been there. And that's putting a whole lot of faith in that James Robinson's going to have such a slide in 2 or 3 years that the Jags don't bring him back and that they make Etienne a bell cow running back. And I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Like I said, I think where he went in our draft was a little bit of a stretch as well. Just especially since Ryan already pointed out he's an unproven rookie in the NFL.
Yeah, that's
that alone.
Yeah, late third, early fourth, I would have taken him for sure.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. But let's go back to the old man's question.
Yeah, so how do you think Wentz does in Indy? From a fantasy perspective, late teens, early 20s. But I think he, overall, in terms of production, I think he goes to like high teens, 12, 11, 10 maybe, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, so the numbers Ryan has given out, he's talking about where he would qualify in terms of every other quarterback in the league. For those of you watching, maybe not understanding.
Yeah. So what I mean by in fantasy, so in 12-man leagues, you'll hear the term running back one, wide receiver one, quarterback one, and what that means is a quarterback one is the top 12 quarterbacks, the quarterback that would start on every single roster. Now, we play a 2-quarterback dynasty league, so you'll hear the term QB2, which is 13 through 24, because mathematically speaking, those are the quarterback twos. I think Carson finishes mid to low quarterback 2. I think 18 for me. The weapons just aren't there. Michael Pittman's still developing. T.Y. Hilton looked really bad last year, and I know he was hurt, and having Philip Rivers as your quarterback doesn't really help. But Indy runs the ball. Oh, what up, Frankie?
Yeah, I saw it too.
Indy runs the football. They're going to run the football. They're going to play smash mouth football because they have a very good defense and they have a very good offensive line led by the best offensive lineman in the NFL, Quentin Nelson. So that will hurt Wentz's fantasy value a little bit. However, that will absolutely improve his real life production. That'll open up the play action. But like I said, I think Carson in fantasy is a QB2, mid to late QB2, but in real life, I think the fact that he doesn't turn the football over outside of last year, that he has the history of not throwing the interceptions, more of an established history of not throwing interceptions than throwing interceptions. I think that benefits him a lot in that offense being with Frank again. So I could see him being 10 to 12 in real life, but I think he's mid to low QB2. And I told you on draft day, I think you stretched for him a little bit.
Yeah, which is why I'm going into my next part. I disagree with you slightly. I think he's a QB2, but he's probably very high QB2 in my opinion. I know T.Y. Hilton regressed a little bit last season, but again, as you pointed out, Philip Rivers is not Carson Wentz. Look, again, I've said this. I've been a supporter of Carson Wentz. I know he's not an Eagle anymore, but the guy throws 21 interceptions over 3 seasons, and then literally in 2018 takes trash cans to the playoffs, or 2019, whatever it was, takes trash cans to the playoffs. Unfortunately, he gets a concussion in the first quarter of the game against the Seahawks, and he has to leave, especially since it's a season where you just signed him. The Eagles made a huge mistake there, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Carson Wentz threw 21 interceptions over 3 seasons outside of 2020, and he was a top fantasy performer in all of those seasons, especially down the stretch in 2019 when he was throwing to trash cans again throwing to trash cans. Zach Ertz hasn't been the same player he was in a couple of years, so he didn't really get a whole lot of help there. The running back, I mean, you were getting help out of Miles Sanders, but that was it. You had nothing else to speak of at that point in time for Carson Wentz.
Well, Boston Scott played well down the stretch too. He had those 2 games against the Giants.
He had those 2 games against the Giants,
which was 2 of the 4 games down the stretch. It was literally half the games.
All right, fair enough. Fine. So Boston Scott performed for 2 of those games, but you can't take away from what Carson Wentz did in those games. You're talking he threw for 228 yards. I think it was 11 touchdowns and 1 interception.
And the interception was on that Hail Mary against Miami.
Exactly. So, I mean, what Carson Wentz is capable of doing versus what he showed in 2020 are completely different scenarios. So he's a high QB2 in my opinion, and by the end of he is talking a lot already.
I'm so happy Frank jumped in this. Frankie jumped in the comments. Get him, Bill.
Yeah, Carson is going to have a much better year, and I'm excited to see it because he deserves to have a situation in it. Look, Indianapolis isn't as big as a sports town, and they don't hold everybody as accountable as the Philadelphia Eagles sports base does, which is fine. Maybe Carson wasn't meant to be a Philadelphia Eagle quarterback because of those reasons. However, he's going to have a good year. Again, high QB2 for me.
Yeah. So, like I said, fantasy for me, I agree with everything you're saying, but I also think you making ties to the end of 2019 only proves my point, because Carson Wentz had to do that in 2019. He had to carry that team because he had trash cans around him. He does not have trash cans around him in Indianapolis. That they have a 3-headed rushing attack with Marlon Mack, Jonathan Taylor, and Jordan Wilkins. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor should get the load of those carries, but that's what the Colts offense is built on. Now, the X factor to that is, was the Colts offense built on that because Philip Rivers was the quarterback, or does the coaching staff have that much faith in Jonathan Taylor and the other two backs? Now, mind you, Frank Reich developed his own three-headed monster here in Philadelphia, and Carson Wentz's stats, while the touchdown-interception ratio was there, the passing yards weren't, the attempts weren't. They didn't throw a whole lot. And I would say that
3,600 yards, 34 touchdowns and 7 interceptions the year before he hurt his knee.
Well, the year that he hurt his knee, yeah. But I mean, like, what are we talking? A little over 4,000 yards? Like, I mean, in today's NFL, is that really like impressive? Like, we see quarterbacks throw for almost 5,000.
A second-year quarterback leading a team to 11-1.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive. Well, he's 11-2. Impressive on paper, but with 3 more games to go, one of which he wasn't even going to play from a fantasy aspect, like this, his passing yards and passing attempts were underwhelming. So I'm saying the attempts aren't there. The chances aren't there. He was just capitalizing on the chances that he had. Right. He was a very efficient, very good quarterback capitalizing on the chances that he was given.
Hey, listen, I like for once we're going to agree to disagree on this one.
Yeah, no, I see Carson Wentz finishing in fantasy no better than QB 18, but I could see him sneaking into the top 10 in real life because just the efficiency of that offense. They'll move the ball very well. They won't ask Carson to do a whole lot, and part of it, again, is not his fault. T.Y. Hilton looks like he's on the downhill, and Michael Pittman still isn't fully developed yet.
All right.
Now, we have a question from your mom, and like my pseudo-mother, Tanya, she asks in the chat, where does Josh Allen rank in fantasy? You're going to love this. You're going to love this. All right, go ahead, Bill. Number 1 overall pick in Dynasty, Josh Allen. Why don't you tell us where you think Josh Allen ranks?
I think Josh Allen ranks as the best quarterback in football. And here's why. Everybody's going to argue with me that it's Patrick Mahomes. And I understand your argument. And I'm not denying that Patrick Mahomes, it's like 1 and 1A. Like they're right there together. But my feeling on Josh Allen is, and it's not that, look, obviously Mahomes can run. Mahomes chooses not to run more often than he does choose to run. Josh Allen will make a play happen at any point in time. If he doesn't see his first 3 reads, he's going to run. And because he's big, he can break tackles and get out of the backfield almost every single time. I'm 100% in agreement. Josh Allen is QB1 on more than just my board. Give me your rebuttal.
All right. So are you talking fantasy or you're talking strictly fantasy, right?
Strictly. Well, she asked fantasy. So
okay, yeah. So
we're talking strictly fantasy. Josh Allen is number 1 on the board.
If you ask me tomorrow, I'm sure I'll have a different answer. I go back and forth on this. We talked about this when you traded up to number 1. I knew you were taking Josh Allen right away, and I agree with all your points. Josh Allen, while Pat Mahomes is an effective runner, Josh Allen's probably going to lead his team in rushing unless Zach Moss just goes off this year. He is a runner, and he is a dude with a big arm, so he can push the ball down the field, and he's got a clear-cut number 1 receiver to do that with in Stephon Diggs. So the weapons are there. The running game with him is there. So his rushing automatically creates a great floor for him. My only issue with Josh Allen is last year he was the most accurate out of college, NFL at any point in his career. Does he sustain the accuracy, or is this an outlier for him? Because if he doesn't sustain the accuracy, his passing is going to take a hit. Now, again, while his rushing easily creates him a floor for a top 5 fantasy QB, no doubt, inarguable. Is he QB1? I'm gonna lean no, just because Pat Mahomes' offense as a whole is a little bit better all around. The number 1 receiver, you could argue either way. In PPR, it might be Stephon Diggs because he tends to get a little bit more volume than Tyreek Hill, but Travis Kelsey's the number 1 tight end fantasy. That's not a discussion. McCole Hardman, they're going to push the ball down the field with him as the number 2 receiver, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire is an effective pass pitching back. He's going to catch passes out of the backfield. So I'm going to lean Mahomes because his team is a little bit better as a whole and his consistency is a little bit more prominent. But if Josh Allen does, again, what he did last year, there's no doubt.
Well, that's the thing, is what he did last year was with a true number 1 wide receiver, which he hadn't had his entire NFL career. He's got Stephon Diggs again this year. I think they went out and got another wide receiver in the draft. I think I don't know. I think he definitely sustains his passing this year. He could, and very well could beat it. Like you said, Zach Moss maybe gets on the field and actually makes another threat in the backfield, so they could do more play action passing and more option run passing and stuff like that, kind of like they used to do in Philly a few years back. And I think he'd be extremely successful with that. And as you already pointed out, Josh Allen has a bazooka attached to his shoulder.
Yeah. I'd say probably him and Mahomes will compete for the strongest arm in the NFL too. And Allen's got that big frame to help him out. To me, it's QB1, QB2. You can put them wherever you want in fantasy. I just think Mahomes' opportunities are a little bit more prominent than Allen's, but Allen's going to make up for that with his more consistent rushing floor. So it's, to me, like I said, I could roll out of bed tomorrow and be like, nah, Allen's QB1. I don't know where I would have taken them in the draft, so I'm glad I didn't have the number 1 overall pick. I'm glad you had to deal with that stress and not me. But yeah, that's a debate that could go on for a long time because you could sit here and make all kinds of arguments or whatever. But that's a great question. So John brings up the point that he fumbles too much. Yeah, but all heavy runners do. Look at Zeke. Since 2014, he leads the league in fumbles, and he's only been in the league since 2016. So, but he's at the bottom.
It's not even close. He leads the league in fumbles.
Yeah, and he's missing 2 seasons. That was like Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson had a fumbling problem too, but that's because he got the ball so much. The only outlier to that, I think, is probably Derrick Henry in terms of pure rushers. I mean, McCaffrey doesn't really fumble, but he does a lot of his work as a pass catcher.
All right, let's answer Derek's question, and then we'll go on to running backs.
This is an easy answer. Yeah. No, 100% is the biggest problem. John Gruden won his Super Bowl in Tampa off the coattails of a team that Tony Dungy made for him essentially, and he caught a little bit of he pulled a rabbit out of his hat, and I think Brian Johnson was the quarterback that won that team that Super Bowl. It's ridiculous. But anyway, absolutely John Gruden's the problem with that team. And the fact that he got, what was it, a 9-year, $100 million contract or 10 years or something, he got quite a hefty contract for a dude that didn't even coach for, years. That was absolutely, I would say it's John Gruden here and then a very big gap and then probably Derek Carr.
I don't know if I would say Derek Carr is yeah, okay. I was going to argue in favor of Derek Carr, but I can't find an argument.
And the receiving core sucks. Honestly, it does.
I mean, they got Darren Waller now.
Hunter Renfro's a good slot receiver, but Bryan Edwards ain't cutting it. I'm not a big fan of Ruggs. I never was. And especially for a guy in Derek Carr who's not known for pushing the ball down the field, Ruggs doesn't really fit the bill of what Derek Carr can do. So it's a little bit of a mismatch, but and as far as problems go, like I said, there's a huge gap. And John Gruden's the number 1.
Yeah, I absolutely concur. It's definitely John Gruden is the biggest problem out there. Ryan, who was the quarterback you wanted in the first round before you traded the pick?
Oh, it was I was going Herbert all the way. Herbert at 5, no doubt. But I'm glad I traded the pick when I did because had I done it on draft day right after John drafted him at 3, I wouldn't have gotten the same value for him. So. That trade totally worked out, but they got to stay Mariota. Mariota's a little bit more dynamic, but if we're talking lack of arm strength, there it is, and inconsistency. He reminds me a lot of like Ryan Tannehill when he was with the Dolphins. Marcus Mariota, like Tannehill had all the potential in the world, but he just could never untap it. Like, it just wasn't there. Then he goes to Tennessee, and Arthur Smith turns him into a god. So,
look, a lot of times it's just a system change that helps these guys.
Yeah, and maybe more like snaps sustained, playing time for Mariota would help him out a lot in Oakland. And that's a good point, actually. I could see Mariota thriving in that system more than Derek Carr, just especially with the addition of Kenyon Drake. They're going to run the ball even more with them and Jacobs. And the biggest benefactors of mobile quarterbacks are the running backs because you run the ball. Mobile quarterbacks open up so many holes for the running backs to go through, option plays and things like that.
Yeah, so you got to leave a spy on them.
Yeah, that's actually a potentially good comment that Mariota maybe fits the bill better for what Oakland could do than Derek Carr.
We're not disagreeing with you, Alex. We're on the same page.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with him. That's a good comment. I forgot Marcus Mariota was even there, even though he played last year.
No, I remembered he was there. I just didn't give him much thought. I think Gruden. That's the other reason Gruden is part of the problem out there is he's so attached to Derek Carr for some reason, and I can't figure it out.
Yeah, it blows my mind. But I think Derek Carr's lack of dynamicness really doesn't, and he lacks dynamicness and he lacks arm strength. So if you lack one, you got to have the other. And I just don't think, maybe even in today's NFL, you have to have both. Maybe that's why the 49ers are giving up on Garoppolo and going to Lance. He's got both. So
yeah, that's a good point. It's a real good point.
It's a terrible fit. It's not a match made in heaven. And I think Derek Carr's the second problem. They need to find a way to lose that Gruden contract first.
Okay.
Anyway, good question, Derek. Yeah, back to the QB I wanted. Yeah, it was always Herbert. I know you and I have talked about this quite a few times. I said it in the group chat. Herbert is going to be the best quarterback, fantasy or not, from that draft class, including Joe Burrow. And I said that before Joe Burrow got hurt. I said that when Herbert was still in college. He's dynamic with his legs. And speaking of rocket arms, he's got one. We saw it last year. And he also led the NFL as a rookie with quarterback rate or passer rating when getting blitzed. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
For a guy who wasn't even supposed to be the starter that year, came in and almost beat the Chiefs. I think that game was 23-20, right when Tyrod Taylor got that shot and they ruptured something. That was one of the craziest stories I've ever heard. I hope that doctor doesn't work for that team anymore.
That doctor doesn't work for anybody anymore.
Yeah, I think I'd be going to see other teams' doctors if I was Tyrod. That's probably why Tyrod went to Houston. He's like, man, I'm getting the heck out of here, dude.
Let's touch on Houston real quick.
Yeah, speaking of fantasy, issues, Houston is big question marks there.
Yeah, so let's just Deshaun Watson, because we don't know anything.
I could see my first thought, commissioner's exempt list. He misses a lot of time this year. And obviously, the running backs weren't great to begin with. That brings the value of everybody on that team down. And the old man literally just said that as I said it out loud. So, yeah, that the running backs aren't great. David Johnson actually had a pretty under the radar year last year. He actually did okay, and he played all 16 games, which is important. However, that team just doesn't have anything. Bill O'Brien really shot that team in the foot and then said, "See you later, I'm getting fired," and rightfully so.
Actually, that leads me to my next question: is do you think Bill O'Brien knew he was getting fired, and since he had managerial control, he unloaded?
No, he got fired because of that DeAndre Hopkins awful, just terrible trade. That was.
Well, yeah.
I wouldn't make that trade in Madden. I think I would feel so bad if I was the Cardinals. I don't know if I would make that trade for them either. I'd be like, dude, seriously? You're not even asking for a first? And this guy, DeAndre Hopkins, is going to be, top 5 wide receiver, fantasy or real life, doesn't matter. We all saw that triple coverage, Moss in the end zone against the Bills over one of the better cornerbacks in Tre'Davious White.
Yeah.
That was a nuts play. But
that's all the Houston conversation I need. They're just a depressing team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and like we touched on last week, even if Watson plays, they'll compete for the number 1 overall pick, which is not really a good thing. Now, the interesting thing is, if they do get the number 1 overall pick, who do they draft? You think they go quarterback? Think they move off Watson?
It depends on what. So he misses some time, but he comes back and he performs. No, I don't think they move off of Watson unless Watson is telling them that they have to move off of him.
I think they move off him regardless. I think Watson doesn't want to be there. It seems pretty well known that he doesn't want to be there anymore. And quite frankly, why would you want to hang around in the city, even if he does get cleared of these charges where you have this kind of rap?
Yeah, no, you're right. They probably do move off of him.
Yeah, and they're going to get, even once if he's found innocent of all this and is cleared to play football again, they're going to get a large return for him.
That's true. You and I had discussed how we thought the Eagles should give up a 4th or a 5th back when the allegations were really strong.
Yeah, I would have done it. I
would have definitely kicked.
I would have even given up one first for him. Been like, this is all you're getting.
I mean, that's a little high for me. The old man, Watson going to be an Eagle? No.
I really wish. Speaking of Eagles, I have a question for you. How many touchdowns total does Jalen Hurts finish with? And is he going to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback?
Total? He'll be lucky to get 30 and no.
Okay. Lucky to get 30 and no. Explain.
So I think he's got a pretty good set of young wide receivers. That's really on the low end. I was still thinking
Jesus.
The old man said seven passing, 10 running. I disagree. I think he has probably 7 or 8 rushing and then 19 to 20 throwing touchdowns, which, look, doesn't sound terrible. 28, 29 total touchdowns for the quarterback in the NFL. Their defense should be able to stop guys. So I'm not saying they're going to have a losing record. That's not what I'm sitting here saying. I just don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be a QB1 at any point in time, especially this year. But even going into next and even the following, unless he really shows me something, my opinion on that is not going to change. There's a reason he sat behind Tua. There's a reason he sat behind Kyler. I'm very adamant about this. Eagles 4th in NFC least. I could absolutely see it.
Yeah, I'm not going to discuss where I think the Eagles are going to finish. Frankie and I, Frankie keeps telling us we need to have a collab, and that's probably one of the things we need to talk about when we get on with 215 is where the Eagles finish. So I'll leave that for another day. However,
but yeah, to round out what I'm saying here is I think Jalen Hurts probably has 28, 29 total touchdowns. The unfortunate part of that is I think he has 4 or 5 fumbles lost and 12 to 17 interceptions. And
I think he lost 4 or 5 fumbles in the 4 games he played.
That's my point.
And in college, he was terrible.
If you're going a 1-for-1 ratio, having a 1.2 touchdown to interception ratio is not good. So that's where I think if he plays the full season, as we already discussed, if he's struggling and the Eagles have an opportunity to win the crappy division that they're in, Joe Flacco is going to be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles.
I could absolutely see Jalen Hurts getting treated like Tua did last year. Absolutely see it. If he's struggling at halftime of divisional games that they need to win, Joe Flacco comes in and plays if they're in contention as a team.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I'm going to make a bold statement here, and this is going to start a fire in the comments section. Jalen Hurts is going to finish ahead of Carson Wentz as a fantasy quarterback.
No, he's not.
100%.
No, he's not.
That rushing floor is the same as Josh Allen's. Jalen Hurts is going to run for like 600-700 yards and like 8 touchdowns.
Shit.
Yeah. That rushing floor.
He's going to turn the ball over. He's going to have 2 turnovers a game. He's going to average. Bold prediction. Average 2 turnovers a game.
That's really bold. I don't think he's that careless. I could see 1.5. But
again, so you're talking he gets 2 total touchdowns a game and turns the ball over 1.5 times.
Yeah. So
and he's still a better quarterback than Carson Wentz this year. No, absolutely not. No,
so do the math. A fumble minus 2 points. An interception minus 2 points. He has 1 passing and 1 rushing touchdown. Disregard yards. So now he's plus 10 points for touchdowns because a rushing is 6 and a passing is 4. And he loses 4 points on turnovers. So even with 2 turnovers a game, 1 of each, he's still plus 6 on the touchdown side. And then you have the rushing yards.
Let's say hypothetically Carson Wentz returns to form and he's only thrown 7 interceptions this season. 36 to 40 touchdowns, you still think like
Carson Wentz ain't throwing 36 touchdowns this year. That ain't going to happen. Not in that offense. The difference in
even if Carson Wentz throws 25 touchdowns, only turns the ball over 7 times, he's a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, even in fantasy.
I disagree wholeheartedly. That rushing floor is not to be messed with in fantasy.
Again, agree to disagree. Carson Wentz will be a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts this year.
I think Jalen Hurts is the high-end QB too. I don't think if I could see him not playing well in real life and still finishing as a high QB too. Think about Jameis Winston for a second. It's not the same type of quarterback at all, but Jameis Winston was always a top 10 fantasy quarterback, even the year he threw 30 interceptions. I think he finished top 5 that year.
I think he did.
Yeah, fantasy changes things, and I'm telling you that rushing floor. The only way I see it not happening is if Jalen Hurts throws for like under 3,000 yards. But I think the difference with Wentz when he was with the Eagles versus Wentz in the Colts offense, the tight end play. Wentz the last couple of years has had two very good pass catching tight ends that he really does not have in Indianapolis. Tight ends are not a prominent part of that offense. The goal line touchdowns that he had, in 2017, 2018, not really going to be there. It's going to just turn around and hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
So in fantasy, I think Jalen Hurts finishes better than Carson Wentz.
Agree to disagree, which is good. I'm glad we're finally finding some disagreements here.
Yeah, there you go, Frank. Hopefully you were watching that. But obviously he's going to be on Bill's side, but that's fine. Honestly, as an Eagles fan, I hope Jalen Hurts is QB1 because that means we're probably doing really well.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, as an Eagles fan, I hope Jalen Hurts balls out. I just don't see it.
That's a good idea, but I'm not going to make bets on Facebook Live. So
definitely. We're not making bets. We'll do it in a chat later.
Yeah, actually, no, we won't. We don't condone betting on sports.
Let's discuss fantasy running backs really quick. I think we're going to agree on running back one. So let's McCaffrey,
yeah. Okay.
Right?
If your RB1 is not Christian McCaffrey, I want to be in your league. Just give me your email right now. If your running back one is not Christian McCaffrey, send me your email. We will start a 2-man league. That's fine. We're playing for $1,000.
Let's discuss 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay.
What I'm assuming we're going based off PPR format.
PPR format, not dynasty league. Let's say it's normal league.
Yeah.
So PPR format. CMC is number 1.
Yeah. CMC is number 1. Non-PPR, PPR. 8 points per reception, -5 points per reception. Doesn't matter.
All right, give me your number 2, and then I'll give you mine.
Dalvin Cook.
I also am a Dalvin Cook fan at number 2.
Yeah, the Vikings are a run-first offense, especially because their defense is going to be better. Expect a regression from Kirk Cousins.
Dad, PPR leagues. You're telling us.
Hey, maybe he thinks Derrick Henry gets over $2,000 rushing again. So
that's a good point.
Derrick Henry's. I don't think the gap between Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry is as big as most people want it to be, but
that's fair. So my number 2 is also Dalvin Cook. Like you already pointed out, the offense is going to be dominant again. I'm dominant. Kirk Cousins. It's hard to say Kirk Cousins is going to be dominant because it just sounds stupid.
So I heard an interesting stat today when I was listening to another podcast, and this blew my mind. 2 of the last 3 years, Kirk Cousins has thrown for over 4,200 yards and 30-plus touchdowns.
I low-key knew that and still am surprised to hear it.
Yeah, I think I'm still hung up on the Kirk Cousins that couldn't quite get it done in Washington. Kirk Cousins has always been a decent fantasy quarterback because he's always thrown the ball a lot. But Minnesota, I think since their defense has improved in the offseason, they'll be a little bit better, like running the football. Their run-pass ratio, although with Justin Jefferson there, they'll still throw the ball some. So however, I think Dalvin Cook being a pass catcher and a very efficient runner, the only thing that's going to stop him from being number 2 is injury, which he hasn't played more than 14 games in his career so far.
So he's called. All right, I won't give away what Derek said. So is Derek, real quick before we move on, is that Ryan's guess or my guess?
It's probably his. He's saying calling it. It's probably what he thinks his prediction is.
We'll get to that in a second, John.
Yeah.
So number 3 for me, I'm going Jonathan Taylor.
That's not outrageous. That's not where I have him, but that's not outrageous.
Okay.
I think Frank Reich likes to split the carries too much for him to get the workload over Derrick Henry. Split touches, I should say, because Jordan Wilkins will catch passes too. But Jonathan Taylor is up there for me for sure, but I'll get to him. To me, it's Derrick Henry, and I only say Derrick Henry because that quarterback change for Alvin Kamara really, I think, hurts his passing stock. I think actually Alvin Kamara is going to benefit more from Taysom Hill being quarterback than Jameis Winston.
And I would concur with that. Dad, real quick on Barkley. He's been injured so much the last couple of years. I'm not saying he's not high on my list. It's just that I wouldn't devote a top We'll get to it.
Yeah,
because he's been injured so much, I have a hard time saying, look, when he's on the field, Saquon Barkley is the New York Giants. No other words about it. Just like CMC makes the Panthers run when Barkley is on the field, he makes the Giants run. But he's coming off that nasty ACL.
It's not his first season-ending injury either, because 2 years ago he had the ankle.
How good his legs are at this point. I know what he is.
Well, his quads are nice. We know that.
Yeah, but if he can't stay healthy, it's in my opinion, it's not top 5 for me because he can't stay healthy.
Yeah, I have a different take on Barkley, but when we get there, we'll get there. Like I said, number 3 for me is going to be Derrick Henry. He's going to get the volume, and with Julio Jones there, that offense opens up so much more.
Yeah, number 4 for me was Henry.
Yeah, and so number 4 for me is I'll probably go Kamara here. He gets a high volume of touchdowns. He does run the ball near the goal line a lot. He's explosive, and he'll still catch passes. He'll be a focal point in that offense, considering their number 2 receivers are, anybody outside of Michael Thomas really in that offense is no name. So I think Kamara will still get the work. I just think it benefits him more if Taysom Hill's a quarterback and not Jameis Winston. But I don't think that's the case either.
Good job, Derek. So my number 5 was going to be Barkley. Now, again, I'm still concerned about his injury history. However, as I've already pointed out, that when he's on the field and he's healthy, the guy is a freak of nature. If he and McCaffrey had both stayed healthy from the time they were drafted till right now, I'd say they are a close 1-1-8 for me, in my opinion, because of the production that Saquon Barkley has put out in his career when he's on the field. Now, unfortunately, like I've already pointed out, he can't stay on the field, and that's a problem, especially in a fantasy situation where you got to be really mindful of where you're picking guys based on what's available on the board and the other 11 guys in the league. So I do put Barkley at 5, but it's a really close Barkley at 5 for me over Kamara.
So I don't have Barkley in my top 5 at all. Nowhere close. I think he's like a tier 2.5, tier 3 running back. Not RB3, tier 3. There's a difference. But
I understand.
Yeah.
Explain it.
Yeah. So what I mean by tier 3 is Christian McCaffrey is tier 0, very untouchable, and then tier 2 is Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, those types guys that are going to produce. They'll just never catch the workload of CMC. And then tier 3, so on and so forth, guys right below them. So it's 3 to 5 guys that you think are going to produce all around the same level. But number 5 for me, and this pains me to say this, is Zeke.
Come on.
Zeke.
No.
Zeke was RB3 through 4 weeks when Dak was playing last year.
Look, I'm not denying his production. I've got him at 7 on my board. I'm not denying his production. You might think 7 is kind of low. I get it. But he turns the ball over a ton.
He also he catches the ball. So PPR, that's huge. Gets the touchdowns, gets the goal line carries. That's huge. He gets the volume. He gets the workload.
And as a fantasy production running back, absolutely, he's phenomenal. However, there's something to be said about the rate to which he hasn't improved. So if he had been improving, so let's say his rookie year, he fumbles 8 times. His rookie year, he fumbles 8 times, and the next year he fumbles 6 times, and it gets better and better. Fine, whatever. But he has not improved. As a matter of fact, you might be even able, if I look up the stats, he may have gotten worse throughout his career.
Yeah, but you're factoring all that in, and Zeke with Dak on the field still hasn't been lower than an RB5, even with all those fumbles.
All right, fair enough.
However,
I want to ask where we rank Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders will actually, I'll talk about where I have Saquon because it seems to be a hot topic here. I have Saquon finishing behind Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers. Yes, Cam Akers. I'll explain that in a second. I have probably Saquon at 8 or 9. And my theory behind that is Daniel Jones is not a good quarterback. Yes, I know I said earlier running backs are the biggest benefactors of running quarterbacks, and it's true. So Saquon will sustain some success that way. However, Daniel Jones is an inconsistent passer. They have, good wide receivers that just have untapped potential because Daniel Jones can't get him the ball. Daniel Jones is a turnover machine, and Saquon can't stay on the field. That offensive line is terrible at run blocking. I think Wayne Gallman, when he took over last year, and granted it's Wayne Gallman versus Saquon Barkley, averaged under 4 yards a carry over quite a sustained amount of time. And that's concerning. Then they didn't really do anything to address it. So, while Saquon, I think people are really riding the coattails of Saquon's rookie season to put him in their top 5. He has top 5 talent. The team around him, the quarterback in place isn't really going to help him out. The offensive line in place isn't going to really help him out. And the Giants are going to be in a lot of close games where they throw the ball. Granted, that'll help him for his PPR stats, but they're going to need to push the ball downfield, especially with Kenny Golladay there now.
Okay, I understand I understand where you're coming from on that.
Cam Akers,
listen, you're partially correct. I'm riding the coattails of his rookie season, and because every time I watch him, he's playing against the Eagles and he's dominating the Eagles. I look at those things specifically. Yeah, I know, right? And I look at those things specifically, and I make decisions based on what I see. It's unfortunate that he's been injured and he's got the injury history. And I didn't know much about the offensive line there in New York, and I knew Wayne Gallman wasn't Saquon Barkley. And because he's not Saquon Barkley, I can't hold him to the esteem of Saquon Barkley. Like, it's just not fair to Wayne Gallman. And because of that, I still he'd be top 6 for me, even if I swapped Kamara there in that spot. To answer John's question, I've got Miles Sanders at flat 10 for me.
I would be shocked if Miles Sanders finished as an RB1.
And as we've already pointed out today, the running quarterbacks immensely help the running back. B, the offensive line in Philadelphia is not bad. Look, it's not young anymore, and it's not great anymore like it used to be. But the offensive line in Philadelphia is not bad, especially now that Jason, well, not technically gone, but he's gone.
Actually, let's hit on that for a second, because I read something interesting. This is Jason Kelsey's last year. There is a clause in his contract that hasn't written out. I think he's owed like $10 million, and his cap hits like 5. If he does not retire at the end of this year, or the Eagles cut him, he is owed like $32 million over the last 2 years of his contract, guaranteed. It was worded that way because if he retired, it saved the Eagles a ton of money. So this is without a doubt Jason Kelsey's last year. And I think they knew that drafting Landon Dickerson, because they knew that contract clause.
Which is good that they were proactive in how he had that in mind, and they went in that direction. I'm not gonna be happy when Kelsey goes. He's one of my favorite players in the Eagles.
I'm getting his jersey for sure.
Yeah.
When I make a bet with Krogan, it'll be a white Kelsey jersey, and obviously I'll win because he makes the dumbest bets. But
you know who I haven't seen in the comments?
I really do. What?
You know who I haven't seen in the comments?
Who?
Tim.
That's because he's at game night with Norton.
That's more important than us?
That's what I said, dude. I was like, what? Anyway, back to the fantasy side of it.
We're going to do that in another podcast, Derek. We're not doing that tonight.
We'll hit that up in another podcast. But anyway, I was saying, thanks for being here, old man. Anyway, for the fantasy side of it, I have Sanders at like 13 or 14 on my board. Because, and I said he's definitely not going to be an RB1. That's right there. He's a high RB2. Could be an RB1. However, I would be shocked because with Kerryon Johnson there, who is a former starter on a team that was terrible. So I'm not really going to hold that against his talents. And Boston Scott, who's proven that he can do some workload. Bringing in an offensive guy from a Colts system who just got done splitting the workload between 3 backs.
Didn't they also just bring back Jordan Howard?
Yeah, I think he gets cut, though. I don't know why this dude, his agent's got to go. He keeps bringing back the Eagles for no reason. But anyway, those 3 guys will share some of the workload. And I think with the amount that they are going to run the ball, they'll be cycling in and out. And Jalen Hurts, I don't think in college, from what I remember, was a very pass to the running back heavy quarterback. So I think Sanders is a good pass catching running back, but he's not in the offense to thrive. So 35, maybe 40 catches, not very elite numbers. But his ceiling, if he gets the playing time, because of his home run hitting ability, he led the NFL in 70-yard rushing touchdowns last year. It's there. He could be an RB1. I would just be a little bit surprised. So I have him as a high RB2.
All right, fair enough.
But back to Cam Akers, his sophomore. And at the beginning of last year, he did terrible. But at the end of last year, he had 2 games where he had well over 20 carries, well over 100 yards, and I think he had 3 touchdowns combined. He's also got a very pass-catching heavy pedigree from Florida State. And now he's got a quarterback in Matthew Stafford who can not only push the ball downfield with Kupp and Woods, Van Jefferson's there too, but he passes to the running back a lot. And Sean McVay just came out yesterday or today and said that he sees a lot of Christian McCaffrey in Cam Akers. Cam Akers, I think, is going to blow up.
Honey, no, you're still editing.
Allie, we love the work that you do, though. We just love it.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Allie Brant is my wife, and she does the editing for the podcast that we put on every week. So make sure you guys in the comments thank her for all the hard work that she puts in. I know we're on the camera and we talk to each other, and I had to turn my fan on because it's hot in this office, and I didn't realize it was hot in this office until I started being in this office.
It's probably all the heat I'm bringing from these Carson Wentz debates. I know I sound like a hater right now, but
no, man, you were in this office. You know it gets hot in this room.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. But so Miles Sanders is interesting to me, but Cam Akers is in such a good position. And for redraft, I would say go all in on Cam Akers. I would say he's a first-round pick. If he falls to the second round, you're getting a steal. But in Dynasty, where I drafted him, the first few years will be very good. It all depends on how long Matthew Stafford hangs around there. They got the receivers in place, Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, I think, 2, 3, and 4 years ago finished as a wide receiver 1 all those years with Jared Goff as quarterback. Last year, he slipped a little. Robert Woods is a 100-catch guy.
Yeah.
Tyler Higbee's a solid tight end, and like I said, Akers is now in position to have a quarterback who throws to the running back a lot. So I would expect very good numbers from Cam Akers this year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm not. It's not that I'm low on Cam Akers. It's that I fear the statement sophomore slump so much that it because why wouldn't you put everybody on the trade block and try and get something for them?
Well, I don't have Cam Akers on the trade block. He never was there. I think he's talking about Kupp, actually. I'm trying to get young, John. I'm not going to win this year. Kupp's 27. He's in his prime. If you want him, come get him.
All right. Speaking of wide receivers, let's move to wide receivers. Do you want to debate if Tyreek Hill is number 1 or not?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Perfect. Let's go, because I don't think he's number 1 either.
Who do you have at number 1?
Based solely on production the last Stephon Diggs.
We're really going to disagree.
We are really going to disagree. Here, look, I know I'm high on Josh Allen, and I get it. And now I know I'm high on Stephon Diggs. But what they did last year, you cannot discredit what they did last year. What did Diggs have? 1,800 yards and 12 touchdowns?
Yeah, and I think I know he had well over 100 catches. It was 110 or something. And mind you, we have an extra game this year.
He's gonna beat those numbers. I'm super confident he's gonna beat those numbers this year. As we pointed out before, Josh Allen can run the ball. And
are you talking about on a per game basis? Because with an extra game this year, obviously you'd expect him to beat those numbers.
On a per game basis, he's better than the receiver he was last year. And in that asset, it makes him number 1 in my mind. Look, I'm not denying Tyreek Hill. I'm not denying A.J. Brown. And if Rodgers is on the field, Devontae Adams is a monster. You've got Calvin Ridley and CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, what the hell? That's way high on this list. Sorry. I'm reading from the list.
Lamb?
And you got your Hopkinses and you've got your Godwins and I get it. But Stephon Diggs is going to be wide receiver number 1 this year, hands down.
Hands down, I don't agree with. He could be. If Rodgers plays, it's absolutely Devontae Adams, no question.
He has nobody else to throw to, but right now, Rodgers isn't playing. You're asking me today with what the information that is given to me right here, right now. It is not Devontae Adams. It is Stephon Diggs.
If Rodgers doesn't play, I would agree with Diggs. Actually, no, I disagree. Again, Calvin Ridley.
Based solely on the targets that he's going to get in Atlanta?
I think Calvin Ridley is going to be the first wide receiver to get 200 targets in a season.
Okay.
Kyle Pitts is a rookie, so we don't know what he's going to bring. Julio Jones is gone.
It's a lot of targets.
Yeah, that's a lot of production to make up for, and there's really only one guy you can count on in that offense, and the Falcons are going to be losing a ton. They are going to sling that football, and Calvin Ridley is going to get his. Calvin Ridley is going to get a lot. Even if the touchdowns aren't there, Calvin Ridley's going to – I wouldn't be surprised if Calvin Ridley caught 140 balls this year.
Okay. I mean, agree to disagree. Look, I'm not saying that Calvin Ridley won't be productive. He will be productive, and I'm with you. He will be productive.
I think just sheer volume alone, he's top 5 receiver, no doubt.
Okay, and I don't disagree. He's my number 4, so I get it.
Yeah, and my second, since we're going off of Rodgers not playing, my second sleeper, Devontae Adams is top 5 again.
Still. Jordan Love.
Yeah. With Brent Hundley at quarterback, Devontae Adams was on pace for 82 catches, 1,100 yards, and 13 touchdowns. And Brent Hundley is terrible.
Brent Hundley is terrible.
Devontae Adams is the best route runner in the NFL. I don't think you can change my mind on that.
All right.
So,
Rodgers not playing. Adams was my number 5.
I disagree with you, John. If Rodgers doesn't play, there's no way Adams is number 1. But if he does play, Adams jumps into number 1 for me.
I still think it's a close 1-2 with Diggs.
By the way, guys, if you hear that noise in the background on my side, it is pouring outside right now.
Oh, it's raining here too.
Yeah, so some of you that have been in New Mexico, lived in New Mexico, we're getting one of them crazy hailstorms, so you guys know what it is. But, yeah, no, I think John's just saying that hopefully because he has both Adams and Diggs. But realistically, if Rodgers doesn't play, there's no way Adams is number 1. It's not going to happen. But on sheer volume alone, again, he'll be top 5.
I'm with you.
Tyreek Hill for me is number 3. The touchdowns are always there. The big play is always there. I just don't think the volume is.
Yeah, I feel like he's so hit or miss during games. He had the game last year. Well, I think it was against Atlanta, where he caught like 15 balls for way too many yards and 4 touchdowns or whatever it was. But then he was non-existent for 3 weeks. Tyreek Hill to me is too hit and miss. So he is number 3 for me as well. But yeah, whatever.
I just think Travis Kelsey being the volume receiver in that offense is
Let's move on to tight ends.
It takes away a little bit. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire will get more opportunities in the passing game this year. But, however, Tyreek Hill's explosiveness cannot be ignored.
I agree. All right, so we're not even going to discuss Travis Kelsey being number 1 because he's number 1 on everybody's board.
Yeah, so tight end number 2 might not even be a debate much anymore. Darren Waller is Derek Carr's favorite target. He's another high-volume guy in a team that doesn't have a lot of receiving options. So, in fantasy purposes, Darren Waller is number 2 for me. But even number 3.
If he could stay healthy, George Kittle. If he could stay healthy. Now,
I disagree even if he stays healthy.
So I go back and forth on my other 3 here. And it's because he's the only person there.
It's TJ Hawkinson.
Because he's the only person there.
That's why I think he finishes number 3. We're talking about high-volume guys who are going to get a lot of targets. Detroit's going to be terrible. They're going to lose a lot of games. The only 2 pass catchers that anybody can name on that team are DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. Yeah. Hawkinson's going to lead the NFL in tight end targets.
Yeah, so
I don't think he won't be more productive than Travis Kelsey overall, but I think he gets more targets than him.
Yeah, he's the only person there. Like no other statement even needed to be made. There's no one there.
They lost 5 of their 6 receivers last year. And Shalibo brings up Mark Andrews, step backwards for me. And I was never very high on Andrews to begin with. He was very touchdown dependent.
Yeah, I agree. Very touchdown dependent. And also, we've discussed this in previous podcasts. I'm not a huge fan of Lamar Jackson and his actual quarterback ability.
You have Kyle Pitts as a rookie in the NFL over Mark Andrews.
Would I? Yes.
I would say so. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think
the production he put up in college at LSU? LSU. Yeah, LSU.
Who?
No, not Pitts. Where'd Pitts go?
Pitts? He was oh Jesus, Florida.
Thank you. I knew that. The production he put up at Florida, absolutely, I would take Kyle Pitts over Mark Andrews. Hands down.
And like we talked about earlier, that offense has nobody besides Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, well, there you
I
go.
put literally 3 dudes on Calvin Ridley every play. That's honestly how I would play the Falcons. Just beat us that way.
Thanks, John. The old man asked, where do we have Goddard? I realistically have Goddard at 8.
At 10?
8.
8? I have him at 8 as well, actually. Now that I'm sitting here running through my mental list, I got Hawkinson at 3. I have Kittle at 4. I have Pitts at 5. Andrews at 6. Tight end's so hard because they're just so bad. Like, the tier gaps are just so bad.
Yeah, I've got Noah Fant above Dallas Goedert.
I think it depends on who plays quarterback there.
Well, yeah, you're 100% right. It does. But based on production, sitting here today in the past couple of, look, I know Goddard's taken over for Ertz, but we also don't know what Jalen Hurts is going to bring to the quarterback position in a tight end heavy. Speaking
of taking over for Ertz is still an Eagle. He hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, we'll get to that next, Ed. But yeah, again, Goddard at 8, he'll be productive. I'm predicting 72 receptions, 680 yards, 8 touchdowns.
I don't even see that many catches.
72? That's a low number.
I see in the high 50s maybe.
I've been updated by Facebook like 6 times that we're live.
What's up?
I've been updated on my phone by Facebook like 6 different times that we're live. No shit, I'm the one that's live.
Hey, we're live. Hey, we're live. Hey, we're live. That's funny. Anyway, you could bump your mic up a little bit. This thunderstorm's killing me.
Is that better?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all right, man. I can barely hear you, but I can hear you.
Yeah, because of the noise in your background, I can barely hear you.
Yeah. How's that?
That's better.
Here we go.
Yeah, I'm working on it too. Give me a second.
Yeah,
Is that better?
I'm trying to keep it out of the picture, but get it closer to me.
Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit.
How about now?
But yeah, you're good. John said sleeper tight end, and it's tough. Tight end is so hard in fantasy because outside of a couple, they don't really see enough volume to be relevant. Outside of like the top 5, maybe you're going to have to stream them. Maybe top 6 because I have Andrews at 6. He's a pretty solid tight end 1, but even as a low end tight end 1, you're going to have to stream him some. So I guess by the definition of sleeper tight end, I'm going Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst will finish as a tight end 1. 1, because it's not really that hard to finish as a tight end 1. And 2, because Arthur Smith, when he was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee, ran a ton of 2 tight end sets. So
if we're going sleeper tight end, I'm going Mike Gesicki. I'm not a fan of Tua Tagovailoa, but he's going to have to dump the ball off in quick situations. And I think if it's not the running backs, it's got to be the tight end, right? So Gesicki is my sleeper tight end. There you go, Derek. I already said it.
Yeah, and for young quarterbacks, tight ends tend to be the safety blanket, so I could see it.
Yeah.
But like I said, I like Hayden Hurst. There's not a lot of options in that offense. Kyle Pitts is new, and Matt Ryan knows him.
You don't really call it when I say it before you type it.
Yeah, maybe he was typing and then you said it, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But
Dad, as for your question, where does Ertz go?
Buffalo.
Unemployment? Buffalo. I could see Buffalo. Buffalo's a legitimate place that I could see Zach Ertz going.
Let me ask you this: he goes to Buffalo. Where's he finish?
In Buffalo?
Yeah, as a tight end.
He jumps up my list significantly.
Where's he finish? Above or below Goddard?
Can I say equal to? Can we tie for 8th?
No.
Okay, then fine, above.
I agree.
Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. You will not change my mind. Don't even try.
I think that would bump Goddard down. I'm not high on Goddard anyway. He's a tight end 1. I would play him every week, but Outside of that, there's nothing impressive about the surrounding situation. They upgraded at receiver, so that's less targets to him. They're not going to throw the ball as much, so that's less targets to him. Jalen Hurts was never as tight end happy as Carson Wentz was. That's less targets to him. Like there's so many arrows pointing down on this scenario.
Yeah. All right. So we've hit every position. You got anything else? You got anything else you want to add before we end our first live show?
My laptop's about to die and it's pouring, so it's probably hard to hear us. I would say it's a good first live show.
I loved it. It was great, man. Thank everybody for. Oh, go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah, we'll be doing this again. No way we won't.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody who logged in. Those of you who stayed the entire time, we appreciate you. I don't know if Ryan can send me this video so I can get it edited. And if not, then we were live.
Yeah, cool. I'll keep sharing it. It'll be on Facebook forever. John, we'll touch your hockey question next week. We just wanted to keep this fantasy football. And like I said, my laptop's going to die and I can barely hear anything anyway. Thank you, Derek, for your graceful presence. We always love to have you. Miss you, buddy. Bill, you got anything else?
Subscribe, like, tell your friends, tell your family, get us as many views and subscribers on YouTube as you can. Eventually, if we get enough subscribers and views, we can be doing this permanently, and that'd be really nice.
Yeah, awesome, guys. So thanks a lot for your support, and have a great evening, guys.
Have a good night, guys.